behind the charm of cowboy hats and heartfelt ballads lies a darker truth. Country music has seen its fair share of villains. From stars who sparked nationwide outrage to icons who divided Nashville itself, these figures became both famous and despised. In this video, we uncover the 12 most hated figures in country music history, the scandals, the betrayals, and the moments that turned fans into fierce critics. Mot, the Chicks. At the turn of the millennium, the Dixie Chicks were unstoppable. With Natalie Maine's powerhouse vocals, Emily Robison's banjo fire, and Marty McGuire's fiddle charm, they redefined what it meant to be women in country music. Their albums, Wide Open Spaces and Fly, sold over 20 million copies combined, earning Grammys, sold-out arenas, and a fan base that worshipped their fearless Texas energy. By 2003, they were the biggest female act in country history, the pride of Nashville, and the symbol of modern empowerment. Then, in a single night, everything collapsed. During a concert in London, just days before the Iraq War began, Natalie Maines told the audience, "We're ashamed that the President of the United States is from Texas." Those 12 words detonated a cultural bomb. Within hours, country radio stations across America pulled their songs. Angry fans smashed Dixie Chicks CDs in parking lots. Conservative commentators branded them traitors, and sponsors cut ties. The same America that had once sung along to Cowboy Take Me Away now called for their careers to end. The backlash was relentless and historic. The Chicks received death threats, were booed at awards shows, and effectively blacklisted from the Nashville establishment. Their image of strength and sisterhood became, overnight, a lightning rod for political fury. While many artists tried to stay neutral, the trio stood defiant, releasing the 2006 album Taking the Long Way with the anthem Not Ready to Make Nice. That record won 5 Grammys, but country radio still refused to play them. The damage was done. For years, they were erased from playlists, ignored by industry events, and treated as a warning to others, a lesson in what happens when you speak against the mainstream narrative. Yet, as time passed, their story evolved from scandal to symbol. The Chicks became a case study in cancel culture before social media even existed. 2 decades later, their legacy has transformed. When they dropped Dixie from their name in 2020, it wasn't just rebranding, it was reclamation. The Chicks are now seen as pioneers who stood for conscience over convenience. Their fall from grace revealed how fragile fame in country music can be when politics collide with patriotism. For some, they'll always be un-American. For others, they were the first truly fearless voices of modern country. 2. Morgan Wallen. In the late 2010s, Morgan Wallen wasn't just another newcomer. He was Nashville's golden boy. With his rugged charm, whiskey-soaked drawl, and anthems that blended heartache with rebellion, he embodied everything the modern country audience craved. His album Dangerous, the double album, shattered streaming records, dominating charts and catapulting him into superstardom. Wallen's songs about small-town nights and lost loves made him relatable, the everyman who'd made it big. For a moment, he was untouchable. Then came the scandal that nearly destroyed him. In February 2021, a neighbor's cell phone video went viral. In it, Wallen, clearly intoxicated after a night out, was heard using a racial slur. Within hours, the fallout was catastrophic. Radio stations pulled his music. His label, Big Loud Records, suspended his contract. The Academy of Country Music deemed him ineligible for awards. Sponsors fled. For many, it wasn't just another celebrity misstep. It was proof that country music still had an ugly, unresolved problem with race. The backlash split the industry in half. Some condemned him as a disgrace who had to face consequences. Others defended him fiercely, insisting he was just a good old boy who made a mistake. Within days, sales of his music surged. Dangerous returned to #1 and stayed there for weeks. What was supposed to be his downfall became proof of his polarizing power. The scandal exposed a cultural divide inside country music, between those who wanted accountability and those who clung to the idea of real country boys never change. In public, Wallen apologized repeatedly, calling his behavior unacceptable and wrong. He donated to organizations focused on Black music education and kept a low profile for months. Yet when he returned to touring, the crowds were bigger than ever. Fans chanted his name as if defying the critics, as if his redemption was theirs too. The controversy didn't end his career. It redefined it. Today, Morgan Wallen remains one of the most successful and most hated figures in country music. For his supporters, he's a symbol of resilience against cancel culture. For his detractors, he's a reminder of the privilege that shields certain artists from true accountability. His story is more than a scandal. It's a mirror reflecting Nashville's deepest divisions. Morgan Wallen didn't just survive the hate, he thrived on it. And that perhaps is what makes him the most controversial country star of his generation. 3. Jason Aldean. For years, Jason Aldean was one of Nashville's most bankable stars, a southern rock cowboy with swagger, radio-friendly hits, and an everyman image that connected deeply with small-town America. From Dirt Road Anthem to Burnin' It Down, Aldean built his empire on nostalgia, pride, and the kind of grit that made him a country powerhouse. His concerts sold out arenas, and his songs became Friday night anthems. To many, he was the face of modern country masculinity. Confident, patriotic, unapologetic. But in 2023, that image ignited one of the biggest firestorms in recent country history. When Aldean released Try That in a Small Town, he probably didn't expect a national controversy. The song's lyrics, about protecting one's community, standing up to lawlessness, and small-town values, struck some as a rallying cry for traditional America. But for others, it sounded like a dangerous call to violence. Things escalated when the music video, filmed at the Maury County Courthouse in Tennessee, a site of historic lynchings, drew accusations of racial insensitivity. Critics argued that the imagery and message glorified Vigism and white rural anger. The reaction was swift and vicious. CMT pulled the video, major media outlets condemned it, and social media exploded in outrage. Overnight, Aldean went from beloved hitmaker to political lightning rod. Progressive audiences called him tone deaf. Conservative fans rallied behind him, framing the backlash as another example of cancel culture. The controversy turned his song into a cultural battleground, not about melody or art, but about identity and division in modern America. Aldean refused to back down. At his concerts, he addressed the crowd defiantly. Cancel culture is not something I care about. He stood by the song, insisting it was about unity, not hate. Ironically, the outrage only fueled its success. Try That in a Small Town shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, marking Aldean's first time topping the all-genre chart. The very scandal meant to silence him ended up propelling him higher than ever before. Yet, the price was real. Aldean's name became polarizing, adored by some, despised by others. For critics, he symbolized the dark undercurrent of anger in country music. For his fans, he was a hero who refused to apologize for who he was. Jason Aldean didn't just sing about small-town defiance, he lived it. And in doing so, he became one of the most hated, yet most unshakable figures in country music's modern era. Number 4. Taylor Swift. Before she became a global pop icon, Taylor Swift was country music's sweetheart, a teenage prodigy who turned heartbreak into poetry. At just 16, she was writing songs that captured the innocence and pain of small-town youth. Tracks like Tim McGraw, Teardrops on My Guitar, and Our Song weren't just hits. They defined a new generation of listeners who finally saw themselves in country lyrics again. By the time she released Fearless in 2008, Swift had become Nashville's golden girl, beloved, unstoppable, and everywhere. But success in Nashville comes with a price, and Swift would soon pay it. As her fame exploded, so did resentment. Traditionalists accused her of watering down the genre, bringing teenage drama and pop gloss into a space built on grit and experience. Radio veterans dismissed her as too soft, too polished, even not country enough. Yet the real storm came in 2014, when she released 1989, her official crossover into pop. Overnight, the country world turned on her. Fans who had once sung along to Love Story now accused her of betrayal. Critics said she'd used country to build a career, then abandoned it for fame and fortune. Country radio pulled back, award shows stopped nominating her, and Nashville, once her home, acted as if she'd never been there. But Taylor Swift didn't flinch. She reinvented herself completely, owning her transformation with unapologetic precision. While Nashville debated her authenticity, she conquered the world. 1989 sold over 10 million copies globally. Reputation shattered streaming records, and her tours became cultural phenomena. Yet beneath the success, a lingering resentment remained. Many in the country establishment refused to forgive her for leaving. Ironically, Swift's departure forced country music to face an uncomfortable truth. Its gatekeeping and fear of evolution had driven away one of its brightest talents. Decades later, she remains both admired and resented, an outsider who made it without Nashville's approval. And when she occasionally revisits her roots, as with Betty and You're on Your Own, Kid, she reminds everyone that she never truly left the storytelling heart of country music. She simply transcended it. For some, Taylor Swift will always be the girl who betrayed country. For others, she's the artist who proved that real storytelling has no borders. Either way, few names ignite such love and hate in equal measure, and that's what makes her one of the most polarizing figures in country music history. 5. Toby Keith. In the years following 9/11, no artist captured the patriotic heartbeat of America quite like Toby Keith. A proud Oklahoman with a booming voice and a no-nonsense attitude, Keith embodied raw, unapologetic American pride. His anthems like Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, The Angry American, and Beer for My Horses struck a chord with millions. To his fans, he was the working man's hero, bold, loud, and fiercely loyal to his country. But to others, he became one of the most hated and divisive figures in modern country history. The spark came in 2002 with Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, written after the death of his father and the 9/11 attacks. The song's defiant lyrics, "We'll put a boot in your ass, it's the American way," ignited a firestorm. Critics accused Keith of glorifying violence and exploiting patriotism for profit. He brushed it off, claiming it was a tribute to soldiers. But as the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan dragged on, many began to see the song as tone-deaf and inflammatory. Then came his now infamous feud with Natalie Maines of the Dixie Chicks. After Maines called his song ignorant, Keith retaliated by projecting a doctored photo of her with Saddam Hussein during his concerts. What started as artistic disagreement turned into a media war. The feud defined an era, one side representing conservative pride, the other liberal dissent. It was country music's own civil war, and Toby Keith stood right at its center. While controversy raged, his commercial success only grew. Albums like Shockin' Y'all and Unleashed went multi-platinum. Keith built a business empire, his own label, restaurants, and even a line of whiskey. He didn't just survive the backlash, he turned it into brand power. For his loyal fans, he was the man who said what others were afraid to. For his critics, he symbolized everything wrong with hyper-patriotic country culture. Arrogance, division, and political posturing wrapped in the American flag. Over the years, as politics and country music became even more polarized, Toby Keith's name remained a lightning rod. Yet beneath the bluster, his work ethic and loyalty to the troops earned him undeniable respect. He performed for soldiers abroad, donated millions to charity, and continued to tour relentlessly. Toby Keith may have been hated by many, but he never sought approval. His defiance, for better or worse, made him unforgettable. In an industry that often avoids taking sides, he chose one. And that's what turned him from a country star into a cultural battleground. Top 6. Garth Brooks. In the 1990s, Garth Brooks wasn't just a country star, he was a phenomenon. With his booming energy, stadium-sized charisma, and crossover sound, he redefined what country music could be. Hits like Friends in Low Places, The Thunder Rolls, and The Dance made him the soundtrack of an entire generation. He didn't just perform, he performed like a rock star, with pyrotechnics, wireless mics, and gravity-defying stunts that turned Nashville into an arena spectacle. But the same boldness that made him a legend also made him one of the most hated figures in country music history. As Brooks' fame exploded, traditionalists grew uneasy. To purists, he was selling out the soul of country. Too polished, too theatrical, too mainstream. They accused him of turning heartfelt storytelling into commercial entertainment. His records shattered every sales record, but behind the applause, resentment brewed. In an industry built on authenticity, many whispered that Garth was too Hollywood, a performer who'd traded emotion for money. And then came Chris Gaines. In 1999, at the height of his fame, Brooks unveiled an alter ego, a fictional Australian rock star named Chris Gaines, complete with black eyeliner, soul patches, and a moody pop album. The idea was meant to accompany a movie project that never materialized. But Nashville didn't see it as creative experimentation. They saw it as betrayal. Country fans were baffled, critics mocked him, and the album became one of the strangest moments in country history. Overnight, Garth Brooks went from America's favorite cowboy to a punchline. The backlash forced him to retreat. By 2001, Brooks announced a retirement from touring, citing family reasons, but few doubted the toll that public scrutiny had taken. His comeback years later, though successful, never fully erased the shadow of the Chris Gaines fiasco. Some fans forgave him, others never did. Even today, his name still divides audiences, hero or sellout, genius or egoist, depending on whom you ask. Yet despite the criticism, Garth Brooks changed the game forever. He opened doors for artists to dream bigger, to blend genres, to think beyond the honky-tonk stage. He showed that country music could fill football stadiums and still touch the heart. But he also revealed something darker, that Nashville's love comes with limits, and the higher you rise, the faster they turn on you. For every fan who calls him the greatest, there's another who swears he ruined country music. And maybe that's Garth Brooks' greatest paradox. A man too country for pop, too pop for country, and too successful to be loved by everyone. 7. Billy Ray Cyrus. When Billy Ray Cyrus burst onto the scene in 1992 with Achy Breaky Heart, country radio had never seen anything like it. His mullet, his swagger, and that ridiculously catchy beat turned the song into a cultural earthquake. Achy Breaky Heart topped charts around the world and made him a global sensation almost overnight. Every bar, wedding, and line dance club from Nashville to Tokyo was shaking to his tune. For a brief electric moment, Billy Ray Cyrus was the face of country music's future, young, fun, and wildly commercial. But just as quickly as he rose, the tide turned against him. To country traditionalists, Achy Breaky Heart wasn't a triumph. It was a disaster. Critics called it bubblegum country, accusing Cyrus of dumbing down the genre to chase pop success. Overnight, he became a punchline. Comedians mocked his look, fellow musicians dismissed him as a one-hit wonder, and Nashville insiders labeled him the symbol of everything wrong with the commercialization of country music. The backlash was brutal and relentless. Cyrus tried to prove he was more than just a novelty act. He released multiple follow-up albums, It Won't Be the Last and Trail of Tears, with deeper songwriting and a grittier edge, but nothing could shake his image as the achy breaky guy. Country radio had already moved on. By the late 1990s, Billy Ray had gone from arenas to county fairs, his career in free fall. To make matters worse, his name became tied to tabloid fame rather than music, especially after his daughter Miley Cyrus skyrocketed to superstardom with Hannah Montana. Ironically, it was that connection that brought him back into the spotlight, though not in the way he might have wanted. As Miley's image transformed from Disney sweetheart to rebellious provocateur, Billy Ray became a target all over again. Critics accused him of exploiting her fame, while others mocked him as a failed musician clinging to relevance. Every time his name resurfaced, the old achy breaky heart stigma followed. Yet, against all odds, Cyrus found redemption decades later. In 2019, he appeared on Lil Nas X's remix of Old Town Road, a record-breaking crossover hit that bridged country and hip-hop. The collaboration was both ironic and poetic. The man once hated for ruining country music became part of one of its most boundary-breaking songs ever. Today, Billy Ray Cyrus remains a divisive figure. For some, he's still the king of corny line dancing hits. For others, he's a survivor who endured humiliation, reinvention, and ridicule, and still found a way back to the charts. His story is proof that in country music, the line between fame and hate is thinner than a guitar string. 8. Miley Cyrus. Before the rebellion, the headlines, and the glitter-covered chaos, Miley Cyrus was country royalty by birth. The daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, Nashville's 90s sensation, she grew up surrounded by music, stage lights, and the weight of expectation. When she burst into stardom as Hannah Montana on Disney Channel, she became America's sweetheart, a wholesome teen who balanced fame with family values. Her show's soundtrack blended pop and country, and millions of young fans, and their parents, adored her. Nashville saw her as the perfect continuation of the Cyrus legacy. But innocence in the spotlight doesn't last long. By the late 2000s, Miley began shedding her clean-cut image. Her provocative performances, revealing outfits, and controversial statements clashed violently with her country upbringing. The 2013 MTV Video Music Awards performance, where she danced suggestively with Robin Thicke, became a cultural earthquake. Overnight, the sweet girl from Hannah Montana was gone, replaced by an unapologetic rebel. Nashville's conservative heartland recoiled. Country radio banned her songs, and country audiences, especially her father's generation of fans, saw her as a disgrace to the family name and the genre's traditions. The backlash was swift and merciless. Talk shows mocked her, tabloids labeled her lost, and social media burned with outrage. To many in the country world, Miley Cyrus became the embodiment of everything they feared, a rejection of morality, roots, and authenticity. Even her father faced criticism, accused of losing control of his daughter or encouraging her rebellion for fame. For a time, the Cyrus name was toxic in Nashville circles. But behind the headlines, Miley was evolving into something larger than the genre that rejected her. Her album's bangers and plastic hearts fused rock, soul, and country twang in a way that was uniquely her own. And in songs like Malibu and her backyard sessions, she returned quietly, almost tenderly, to her Tennessee roots, stripping down the noise and showing the raw, unfiltered voice of a true artist. Ironically, the same industry that once condemned her later began to admire her. Artists like Dolly Parton, her godmother, publicly defended her as fearless and authentic, a woman who refused to let others define her. And when Miley honored old legends like Jolene or performed classic country covers live, her talent reminded everyone of what had always been there beneath the controversy. Miley Cyrus may never fit Nashville's mold. She was too loud, too bold, too unafraid. But in a way, her defiance carried the same spirit that built country music in the first place: rebellion, resilience, and truth. Loved by some, loathed by others, she remains one of the most polarizing figures to ever emerge from country bloodlines. 9. Shania Twain. In the mid-1990s, Shania Twain was unstoppable, a Canadian outsider who dared to redefine the rules of country music. With her breakthrough album, The Woman in Me, and the global phenomenon Come On Over, she brought a pop sparkle and female empowerment rarely seen in Nashville. Songs like Man, I Feel Like a Woman, That Don't Impress Me Much, and You're Still the One didn't just top charts. They transformed her into a worldwide superstar. Shania wasn't just singing country, she was reinventing it. And for a brief, glittering moment, she was the queen of both Nashville and pop culture. But success on that scale comes with enemies. Traditionalists accused Shania of corrupting the genre with Hollywood gloss. Her slick production, courtesy of her then-husband and producer Mutt Lange, was dismissed as pop in a cowboy hat. To many Nashville purists, she wasn't a country star. She was a crossover experiment. Critics scoffed at her glamorous image and midriff-bearing outfits, claiming she used sex appeal more than soul. And as her albums dominated both country and pop charts, resentment grew. While fans adored her confidence and independence, parts of the industry turned their backs, calling her the anti-country princess. The scrutiny intensified after her meteoric rise. In an era still dominated by male artists, Shania's unapologetic ownership of her image and her refusal to play the submissive country role made her a threat to the old order. Awards came pouring in, but whispers of inauthentic followed her everywhere. The deeper irony? Her music, with its storytelling roots and country phrasing, was no less country than her critics. She just dared to make it global. Then came the personal tragedies that almost silenced her. After years of success, her marriage to Mutt Lange fell apart in scandal. He had an affair with her best friend. Shania retreated from the public eye, battling heartbreak and the vocal condition dysphonia, which nearly destroyed her ability to sing. For nearly a decade, she vanished, and the industry moved on. Many wrote her off as a 90s relic who couldn't come back. But Shania Twain is nothing if not resilient. Her 2017 album Now marked a triumphant return, older, wiser, and defiant. The same critics who once dismissed her now hailed her as a pioneer who paved the way for today's female stars like Casey Musgraves and Maren Morris. Even her supposed pop sins became the blueprint for the modern sound of country crossover success. Shania Twain's story is one of transformation and endurance. She was loved by millions, hated by the gatekeepers, and ultimately vindicated by time. 10. Blake Shelton. For over 2 decades, Blake Shelton has been one of country music's most recognizable faces. A baritone voice with a mischievous grin, equally at home on the stage as on television. When he first emerged in the early 2000s with hits like Austin and Some Beach, Shelton represented the new wave of country charm. Laid back, funny, and relatable. His songs celebrated small-town love, heartbreak, and beer-soaked nights, earning him loyal fans across America. But as his fame grew beyond music, Blake Shelton's image started to shift, from beloved country crooner to one of the most polarizing figures in Nashville. The turning point came when Shelton joined NBC's The Voice in 2011. Suddenly, the Oklahoma singer wasn't just a country star, he was a primetime celebrity. His humor, arrogance, and flirtatious banter made him a TV favorite, but many in the country community began to see him differently. To purists, he'd gone Hollywood, trading authenticity for mainstream fame. As he cracked jokes on national television and rubbed elbows with pop stars like Adam Levine and Gwen Stefani, traditional fans felt betrayed. The man who once represented rural America now seemed more at home under Los Angeles lights. Then came the Twitter era, and Shelton's sharp tongue. His drunken late-night tweets and controversial remarks often made headlines for all the wrong reasons. From politically charged jokes to offhand comments about women and other artists, he gained a reputation for being careless, even arrogant. Some of his statements offended longtime fans who had seen him as the lovable country boy next door. And when his high-profile divorce from Miranda Lambert turned into tabloid chaos, the public image that once felt authentic started to look messy. Accusations, rumors, and thinly veiled lyrics from both sides fueled the drama, and country fans picked sides, many turning their anger toward Shelton. The backlash deepened when Blake began dating and later marrying Gwen Stefani, a California pop icon. To die-hard country fans, the relationship symbolized everything that had changed about him. Glitz over grit, celebrity over sincerity. Country radio still played his songs, but his reputation as a real countryman was fading fast. Despite massive success with hits like God's Country and Honey Bee, many listeners began to call him fake country or Nashville's TV cowboy. Yet, like every great showman, Shelton has learned to embrace the criticism. He jokes about his haters, leans into his television persona, and continues to tour and release hits that fill arenas. He's become a symbol of the blurred line between fame and authenticity, the price of being both adored and despised in equal measure. Blake Shelton may not be the pure country troubadour he once was, but he's undeniably one of the genre's most powerful figures. Loved for his humor, hated for his ego, he remains proof that in Nashville, fame always comes with a target on your back. 11. Miranda Lambert. Few artists have embodied both strength and controversy in country music quite like Miranda Lambert. Emerging in the early 2000s with her fiery debut Kerosene, Lambert stood out from the beginning, bold, outspoken, and unapologetically herself. Her lyrics weren't sugar-coated love songs. They were revenge anthems, stories of betrayal, and portraits of complex Southern womanhood. Fans adored her honesty. Critics hailed her as the modern outlaw, a woman who could outshoot the men at their own game. But behind that firebrand image was a storm that would eventually make her one of the most loved and most hated women in country music. Her rise was meteoric. Albums like Revolution, For the Record, and Platinum won her shelves of awards, cementing her status as the genre's reigning queen. But fame and authenticity are uneasy companions in Nashville. The trouble began with her highly publicized marriage to Blake Shelton, country's golden boy at the time. Together, they were the industry's power couple, until it all fell apart. When their divorce hit headlines in 2015, fans and media alike tore into Lambert's personal life, dissecting lyrics for clues, blaming her for infidelity, and turning her heartbreak into tabloid fodder. In a genre that still holds women to double standards, Miranda became the villain in a story she didn't fully control. But Miranda wasn't one to stay quiet. Her post-divorce music, songs like Vice and Tin Man, turned her pain into art, earning critical acclaim, but also reopening old wounds. At the same time, her no-filter attitude and occasional outbursts kept her in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. She publicly confronted photographers, clashed with fans at shows, and made headlines for throwing salad at a diner patron who insulted her. To some, these moments painted her as short-tempered and arrogant. To others, they showed a woman refusing to play nice in an industry that often demands women smile through the disrespect. Then came her whirlwind marriage to NYPD officer Brendan McLaughlin, a surprise that reignited old gossip cycles. Critics accused her of hypocrisy after years of calling out infidelity in her songs. The media spun her story into one of chaos and contradiction, overshadowing her artistry once again. Yet through it all, Miranda Lambert's authenticity never wavered. She's won more Academy of Country Music Awards than any artist in history, male or female. Her lyrics continue to cut deep, her fan base remains fiercely loyal, and her image, imperfect, unpredictable, but undeniably real, keeps her both revered and resented. In a world that still wants its country women tame and smiling, Miranda Lambert stayed wild and unapologetic. That defiance made her a legend and one of the most divisive figures Nashville has ever known. Kid Rock. No artist has tested the boundaries of country music or public tolerance quite like Kid Rock. Born Robert James Ritchie in Michigan, he burst onto the scene in the late 1990s as a rap-rock rebel, famous for swagger, profanity, and chaos. With his fusion of hip-hop, southern rock, and outlaw attitude, he built a loyal fan base of outsiders who loved his brash defiance. But when Kid Rock began crossing into country territory in the 2000s, Nashville didn't quite know what to do with him. He wasn't born of its soil, didn't follow its rules, and that made him both a sensation and one of the most hated figures ever to touch the genre. His 2008 hit All Summer Long changed everything. A nostalgic blend of Lynyrd Skynyrd and summertime Americana, the song topped country charts and became inescapable on radio. Suddenly, Kid Rock was a crossover star, performing at country festivals, collaborating with legends, and even getting Grammy nominations. But the success didn't come without backlash. To traditionalists, he was a rock intruder exploiting the country label for fame. To younger audiences, he was a throwback to an era of macho excess that felt outdated. He'd broken into Nashville's temple and made himself impossible to ignore. Then came the politics. As America grew more divided, so did Kid Rock's public image. He proudly displayed Confederate flags, launched tirades against political figures, and filled his shows with fiery speeches about freedom and real America. What some saw as patriotism, others saw as hate. Critics accused him of racism, sexism, and reckless provocation. Yet, the more he was condemned, the louder his supporters cheered. He leaned into the controversy, performing at political rallies and declaring himself uncancelable. Nashville's elite kept their distance, but in small towns across the South and Midwest, his concerts still sold out. Even his personal scandals kept feeding the fire. Drunken outbursts, public feuds, and inflammatory social media posts that blurred the line between rebellion and recklessness. His unapologetic persona made him both an icon of blue-collar defiance and a symbol of everything critics despised about modern American culture. And yet, behind the noise, there's an undeniable truth. Kid Rock gave voice to a part of the country audience that felt left behind. His music, rowdy, messy, unfiltered, resonated with people who saw themselves in his chaos. Love him or hate him, he tapped into the soul of frustration that Nashville's polished stars often avoided. Today, Kid Rock stands outside the Nashville system, wealthy, infamous, and defiantly proud of it. He doesn't beg for airplay or awards. He thrives on outrage. In a genre built on authenticity, his is raw, ugly, and unedited. Kid Rock didn't just cross the line between country and controversy. He erased it, and in doing so, he earned his place among the most hated, most talked about, and most unrepentant figures in country music history.